Hello, I promised I'd make another video about how I use the Force and Roland's MX1 mixer. So the MX1's a really versatile mixer. It can use the IRA gear through USB, which means that you can get audio and sync through USB on it, but also has normal audio in there as well, and obviously syncs. I use mine slightly differently to everybody else, I think, with the Force. I don't use the USB audio into the Force. What I do is I have the USB connected to my computer, so I can record audio into my computer in Ableton. And then the audio from the Force is just going into one of the audio channels on the MX1. And then I sync the MX1 via MIDI, so 5 pinned in, comes out of the Force, goes in to the MIDI in on the MX1. And then I make sure that my sync button is down and change that to MIDI, so that when it receives MIDI from the Force, all the other equipment connected to it will then sync as well. So the IRA equipment will work via USB sync, and it'll all be in time with the Force, which is great. So at the moment I've got an MC707, I've got a TR6 and an S1 all connected to the USB sockets on the IRA, and then also down here I've got an RD9 and an RD8, which are connected directly to a USB hub into the USB inputs on the Force at the back. The really great change that they introduced with the update of the operating system was that we can sync to USB MIDI, which is fantastic. Now it's really widened the capability to connect other gear to the Force really easily. So when you've got your USB gear plugged into the Force, key thing here is you go into the preferences, you choose MIDI, and you look and make sure that sync is enabled for all of those devices. And because it's USB, it just gives you the name of the devices. So I've got RD8, RD9, sync is enabled on both of those. Make sure as well that there isn't too much coming into the MIDI in, because that can really cause problems. It can cause MIDI feedback loops. So generally, if you're getting stuck MIDI notes, it's because something's transmitting MIDI in that you weren't aware of. So I just turn all of that off that I'm not using. Okay, so when I press play on the Force, the MC707 will start playing. There it is. And if I unmute the tracks, this is the TR6. And the S1. And here's the Behringer RD9. The RD8. So that's everything syncing through the MX1. Force is the master, MX1 is receiving the MIDI, linking everything up. So the other thing that I've done, which is slightly different to everyone else, so I still get audio into my Force from the MX1. And instead of using USB audio, what I'm doing, I've rigged up the send so that the send comes out of the MX1, comes into the inputs on the Force, and then using outputs 3 and 4, I send the signal back to the desk. So it comes out of the MX1, into the Force, through the Force, back out and into the return input on the desk. So what that allows me to do is I can create an audio track in the mixer within the Force. And if I enable the track so that the monitor is on, what will happen is it will send audio from the send control here. So select a track, turn the data value to 100, make sure auxiliary is selected, and it will send 100% of the signal. And that will go into the Force and then be processed by the Force, and then return back into the desk. But what I've got as well is a Chaos pad down here. So my signal goes from the MX1 into the Force to the Chaos pad and then back to the desk. So that allows me then to use an auxiliary send really easily. So here we go again. So it's just going to be the 909 this time, the RD9. So there's the RD9. And here's the Chaos pad doing time, but close enough. quick and dirty way to show you how it works. I'll play it with the rest of the stuff working as well. You hear it a bit better perhaps. Here we go. So there you go, in a mix, it sounds cool. So that's using a send and return to take audio from a track through the Chaos pad and into the desk again. But what you can also do is use that to sample into the Force as well. So another handy tip I've got for you if you've got an MX1, the digital output, or digital input rather, doesn't really get used very much. I didn't use it for 3 years probably. I've had the desk and I never used it. But I found you can get an adapter that turns an analog signal into the digital one. So I bought one of those, and what I've used it for is to rig my record deck over here up to the Force. So now that comes in on the digital channel, and I can sample straight into the Force. So if I go into menu, choose sampler, and now just mute the other tracks. So now what I've done, if I select the track, I can just turn up the send on that particular track to 100, and that will send the audio from the record deck into the Force. And here we go.
Who is the best? We are the best. Who's one of the best? You're one of the best. Why am I so best? I don't know.
So there we go. So that's created a sample within the Force now. So I'm just going to call it SP, and we're going to edit that track. And now if I go in here, we can hear.
Who is the best? We are the best. Who's
We can hear it in the Force.
You're one of the best. Why? Who is the best? We are the best. Who's one of the best? You're one of the best. Why am I so best? I don't know. Who is the best? We are the best. Who's one of the best? You're one of the best. Why am I so best?
So there you go. That's how to get audio from your MX1 into the Force without using the USB audio interface. The advantage to this is that you can connect that to your computer and still record audio into your computer. So I use Ableton a lot when I'm recording, so I can send individual tracks from the MX1 into the computer without having to unplug everything. It also means I can get audio into the Force and sample really quick and dirty stuff really simply. Gives me a lot of versatility. I'm going to do another video as well shortly after this one, with how I use the Roland J6 and the Force as well. You might see it down here. So that's another one to watch out for over the next week or so. Hope that's been helpful. Hope it's been useful for everybody. Do feel free to comment on it and ask me questions about the setup if you need to. Happy to reply. Just sometimes takes a while. Okay, thanks very much for watching. Bye.